Good morning and welcome to Willow's Green Permaculture. My name is Stephen Dixon, and today I'd like to talk to you about a tropical plant that's worth making the effort to grow even in a cold climate like here in Ontario, Canada, because of all the reasons why you can use it. I'm going to show you all the different ways that we use it, and there are more than you might think. And I'm also going to show you how you can get an aloe plant to grow crazy like this even in a cold climate. So if this is something you're interested in, then let's get started. Now this plant here is in desperate need of being divided up. I'm not sure I'm going to show you that in this video because a plant this size is going to take me all day to divide it all up and put it into all sorts of different pots. And we're still, it's still a cool spring day today, and so I'd rather wait until midsummer to do that sort of thing. However, what I am going to do is show you basically all you need to do to use some of it. So I need to use some on my cat Hoshi. And so I'm just going to take a leaf here. All you need to do is this. Just break it off. And then what's left there is going to dry up. Make sure maybe you put something underneath it because the sap is going to drip from there while it's drying. And if it's on something that could stain, you wouldn't want that. And so I've got a plate under here. It can drip onto, because the sap will drip, especially the sap that's around the skin. Now, what you want to use is the juice that's inside. That's the most important part that you're going to want to use. You don't want to use the kind of the latex stuff that's in the skin, okay? And that latex stuff, it kind of turns yellow, like you can see here on this plate. You got a bunch of cut pieces here. But also, as I can show you from some of these cut pieces, I can show you how it dries up. See, that's a cut piece there, and it all dried up. I cut this a few days ago, and because it dries up like that, even cutting it, after a few days, nothing's happened to this leaf. You could probably even make this sprout some roots again. I'm not sure. I think I've tried that, but I can't remember. So I'm going to take this fresh one that I just cut, or I could take this one. Doesn't really matter, either one. And I'm going to use it on my cat Hoshi. This is my cat Hoshi. Resting here. I just woke her up because I made some noise. She was sleeping. Anyway, she's been sleeping a lot recently. And so that's what kind of makes me know that she's under the weather. Now the thing is, cats love to sleep. And they'll sleep all day sometimes. They're nocturnal, and they'll go out at night. We put them all out at night. And during the daytime, they'll often come in and sleep, except for our cat Fada, who likes to stay outside all the time. But anyways, but Hoshi's sleeping a lot more than she does usually. And so that made me want to have a look at her, examine her. And I noticed something the other day, which was coming back, something that had happened several months ago. She had gotten very sick. We had noticed she was lethargic. And so when I examined her, I had noticed that she had gotten some scabs on her neck. And it had gotten really bad because we noticed it when we saw that she was losing fur and her skin was raw around her neck. We were very worried about that, and we were noticing that she was sleeping a lot and she was very, very sick. We thought maybe she'd gotten injured. We watched her over a couple of days, and then we saw how she was just basically all she was wanting to do was sleep all the time. And the rawness around her skin and the loss of fur was getting worse. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna have to do something about that. And so at the time I took some aloe, which I've used for many different reasons, not just for us, but also I've used them for plants. And in the past, I've used them on our cats before, several years ago. And a couple months ago, I decided to do it with Hoshi on what was going on around her neck. I don't know, maybe there was a bug that was eating at her skin, but I decided to use some aloe on her, and I'm going to show you how I did that. So basically I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut a piece, actually a couple pieces. So basically cut a piece like this. See, this piece isn't very thick, so I'm going to cut from the other one that I showed you. that I'd cut a few days ago. And basically, I just cut along the edge and open it up like this. You want it open up like that to get all that juice there exposed. I'm going to cut another piece from this thicker one that I'd showed you that I'd cut a few days ago, and I'm going to show you how it stays fresh even after all those days. So I just cut, I just cut that piece. Now I'm just going to cut along one side there like that, just so I can open it up, make it nice and flat. Got it all over my fingers. Now aloe is very bitter, so when I go to eat later, I'm going to want to wash my hands. Otherwise, I'm going to have the flavor of aloe juice, and that's not very delicious. Now, I've covered the sofa here so that the juice doesn't get onto the sofa because it could stain, turn it make little red blotches. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rub the aloe juice onto Hoshi's neck like this. And you see, this is the third time I've done this in the last few days. And so normally she'd take off if I started to do something like this because it's kind of weird and it's wet and it's cold. But she knows what I'm doing. She remembers when she was really sick several months ago. Now she doesn't have any raw skin right now, but she has those little scabby things that she's been scratching at. So some kind of injury or some kind of bug bite or something that has irritated her skin, made it all scabby, made her be scratching at it. And but it isn't so bad that the skin's gone raw yet. Thank goodness. So whatever it is, the last time I did this, when she was really, really sick, it all healed. So the aloe not only healed the raw skin and allowed the fur to grow back, but perhaps whatever was bothering Hoshi, maybe it was a bug. Well, the bug just didn't like the flavor of the aloe because aloe is very bitter. Whatever it was, bug, bacteria, who knows? Whatever it was, Hoshi it did not like the aloe and it went away. Look at how Hoshi's being very patient with me while I do this. Hey, Hoshi, you like that? Eh? You know, and this is edible. The inside juice of aloe is edible. The outside latex that's in the skin, the white kind of stuff that turns yellow when you cut it, that isn't edible. But this stuff is. You can make a smoothie out of it. You cut this inner juice out, the inner gel, and you can put it in your food and stuff like that. It doesn't taste very good though. I'm not a big fan of it. So I don't eat it, but I will. I do use it for myself, and I'll show you how. So I think I've gotten it all. Then now, there we go. It's all kind of dried up, and there. Well, she's had her treatment, and now she's going away. But you see how she was very good about that. Anyway, I'm going to show you how I use it on myself now. So for this next part, I'm going to grab another piece. There we go, just pull it off like that. So I got changed because I don't want to stain my sweatshirt. And so I got another piece here because I use quite a bit of this for what I'm going to use it on. And basically what I'm going to do is now the warm weather's back, I like to go outside sometimes without a hat. However, I can get sunburnt. And so this is something that I like to use as sort of a natural skin protection, because it kind of like puts on an extra skin. Now, I'm not saying it's going to protect you. You can spend hours and hours and hours in the sun and it's going to protect you from a sunburn, but it does help. And actually, if I do get a sunburn, I'll do exactly the same thing that I'm about to do now with it, but afterwards. So I'll use this as sort of like a pre-sun sun protection block, and I'll also use it as an after sun lotion for sort of its healing effects. So I'm going to cut it again, cut a couple pieces here, cut them open, very simple. Open them up. No need to like cut it all out and process it and stick it in a jar and mix it with water. I just open up the aloe and this is what I do. Yeah, just like this. Basically as if I'm doing a shampoo. Except that with one important difference, you know, actually I don't even use shampoo, but you know, you read shampoo labels and it says, put in hair and put in wet hair, lather up, rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. Right now all they want you to do is empty the jar, empty the bottle. Anyway, however, in this case, I'm basically rubbing it all over my head and neck. Probably do it on my face too. On the back of my neck. And all over. Tops of my ears. They like to get burnt. So it's kind of tops of my ears, behind my ears, everything. If I had my brush on me, I'd brush my hair. I'll just use my hands for now. It also acts a little bit like hair gel. So it holds my hair in place. And there we go. All protected. And now you just let it dry. You don't rinse it off. It's going to dry and within 15 minutes it'll be completely dry. And I'll brush my hair. Well, I can brush my hair now. But it'll be completely dry and I'll be able to run my hands through my hair and it'll be just kind of just makes the hair firmer and all the rest of it. You know, it's not slimy or anything like that. I mean, obviously it looks slimy when you first open it, but it dries up. You don't have to rinse it off. You just leave it there and there you go. Now, if you ran your hands through your hair and then ate with them afterwards, you'd get that aloe flavor. No, it's no big deal. I mean, aloe is very healthy for you, the inside of it. But there it is, aloe. Now, I mentioned about getting it to grow really well. Okay, well, I'll be back in a minute. Here's how you get a big, beautiful aloe like this. I used to think that I needed a south-facing window, but no, you don't need a south-facing window. A south-facing window for your aloe would be great, but that's not the key. The key is your aloe plant needs direct sunlight for a good portion of the year, direct outdoor sunlight. That's how it's going to do it the best. So if you have access to a patio, to a balcony, or to a yard, that's where you're going to have your best choices for your aloe plant to be able to grow a lot faster, a lot bigger, a lot more explosively. If you don't have that, then yes, a south-facing window, an east-facing window, or a west-facing window, or southeast, southwest, those would be your best options if your only options are indoor. A north-facing window, like what I have here, is basically, it's not enough. It's, however, it's enough if you can expose it to some direct sunlight during the year. And so what we do is this aloe spends the entire summer outdoors. As soon as there's no more risk of a frost, by about, for us, that means after the first week of June, let's say, that's when we can put this aloe out, and it can stay out for at least 3 months, at least until about mid-September, when the risk of a frost returns. But there's a very important thing that you need to do. Just like any of your other plants that you have indoors or inside a greenhouse, you need to harden it off. Hardening off isn't necessarily just for preparing a plant for the cold. It's preparing a plant for any type of weather that it didn't get indoors. It didn't get rain, didn't get wind unless you put, a fan on it or something like that. I never bothered with fans. It didn't get temperature shifts, whether that's high or low, didn't get direct sunlight and so on. And so you've got to prepare your plants. You've got to harden them off for that type of thing. Well, the same thing goes for the aloe. Even though it absolutely adores the sunlight, you need to prepare it, because if it's spent 6, 8, even 9 months indoors, then the sunlight is going to be a shock. You don't want it to have that. Basically, it's like transplant shock or the sun shock. It'll burn. If you were to put this into direct sunlight all day long, even under clouds, let's say, all day long with nothing sort of blocking it, then it would burn. It would turn to let's say, a maple syrup, golden brown color. Now, they actually do that naturally. I used to live in Oaxaca, Mexico. I had aloe plants there, and they turn that color in the hottest, driest season. But they turn that color slowly, and it was sort of a defense mechanism. They also turn that color if they get that type of transplant shock, and it can be so severe that it can actually kill a plant. Not just aloe. It can, many tropical plants that can do the same thing if they've spent many, many months indoors. This little video is from the end of June last summer. When you put the aloe out, even in partial shade, it's going to change color. It's going to lose some of its color like this. Now, if you put it into direct sun, it will lose a ton of color and turn almost brown. It's better not to do that. Put it in partial shade first and then move it into the sun after about 2 weeks. Now, during those 2 weeks, you're going to see it's going to start to become green again. This one hasn't completed that process, but this one was put out maybe a week before these two. And this one was put out about a couple days before this one. As you can see, progressively they're starting to get greener, and eventually they're going to get very, very green. So what you have to do is harden it off slowly, meaning put it under some kind of a shelter, under a gazebo, up against a wall where it's only maybe going to get early morning sunlight or very, very late afternoon or evening sunlight, or maybe under a tree, anywhere where it's going to be shaded from especially the direct, strongest overhead sunlight. And then you do that for a couple of weeks, and over those couple of weeks, if you can, it's a little complicated with this one because it's huge and very, very heavy, but if you can, move it a couple times, give it a little bit more sun each day over those 2 weeks, so that it gradually gets used to the sun, so that when you can finally move it into full sun where it has absolutely no protection, it'll be ready for it, because that's the kind of exposure that your aloe plant wants. It wants to be in the full sun all day long, and if it does that and it gets enough water and so on, and you don't have to, it doesn't need that much water, but you still need to water it, especially if it's in the full sun, and especially if it's in a pot like this and not in the ground. So you'll need to water it, you need to be checking it, and but if it gets that full sun, it's gonna store all that beautiful sun's energy into these nice thick leaves, and that's what's gonna get it through the winter. And in the winter, if all you've got is a northern facing window for your aloe, then that's fine. And and actually, this past winter, I did an experiment in our solarium. You may have seen our video where we put greenhouse panels in front of our garage doors, in our garage. We're able to open and close our garage doors, but when we open them, we have these greenhouse panels that are there. And so in the coldest months of winter, if it's a sunny day, we can open those garage doors and let all that sun in, because our garage doors are south facing. Even on a cloudy day in the winter, we'll open those up and it will still make a difference in the garage. And before this past winter, we were not able to keep our aloe plants in the garage, but this year we were, and they survived. They would have died. I tried it with one plant and almost killed it, because the garage was just too cold for it. There wasn't it was in a window, but the window wasn't south facing, and it was a small window, and it almost died. I had to bring it back into the house. But now we're able to keep our plants even in our garage, which is not heated, but those panels warm it up enough in the winter and give it that much more direct sunlight in the winter that they're able to survive. And I'll show you those now. So behind me right here, we've got a whole bunch of aloe plants that spent the whole winter here in our garage solarium. They're all doing real well, and they also need to be divided. And we've got a fig tree here too. Some small ones that were divided last year. A whole bunch of small ones. There's another one there, Another one there. Got a lemon tree here. I can't remember what this fruit tree is called. A friend of ours gave it to us. And here's our setup here in the garage, and got a couple more aloes right there. There are so many things that you can do with aloe. People will actually eat the inside, like I said earlier, the gel, not the latex. That'll make you sick, not the skin. Magali makes a gel mixing the inside of the aloe, which I'm going to show you how she takes it out here, with almond oil. She mixes it up, makes a nice firm gel out of that, and then keeps it in the fridge, and you can keep it in the fridge for a couple of weeks. She gave some to a friend of ours who was having some real issues with some itching on his arms that was lasting for a long time, and he used it on his arms, and the issue went away in a few days. And then he kept this stuff in his fridge, and at one point he got a severe burn in his workshop, and he went into his kitchen and he stuck his hand into the aloe and almond oil solution, and it healed it up nicely. And actually, I've done the same thing, but just with the pure aloe when I've burnt myself in the kitchen. I've given myself some pretty bad burns, and then I'll just cut a piece of aloe. I'll rub the aloe juice directly onto the burn, and then it completely heals, and I don't even get a scar afterwards, which is really nice. I've used the gel of aloe when I've had sunburns. I've also used it on poison ivy to soothe the itch, although stinging nettle works better for that as far as I'm concerned. I've got a video about that if you want to see how I've used stinging nettle for poison ivy. And but I've also used it if I've had bug bites that the burdock or the curly dock or the plantain didn't seem to want to soothe. Well, the aloe has kind of helped, because when you stick aloe on your skin, it kind of becomes a second skin. And like I said earlier, I put the aloe in my hair, and you see, it's all dry now. It's all dry. It's good. And so there you go. Really nice to have. She's feeling better after her treatment. She wants to go outside. Hey, is she? Now, Hoshi has come back in after going outside after her treatment. Now she's just resting. I hope you liked the video. I hope you learned something from it and you found it useful. If you liked it, then please give it the thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you have a question or a comment, don't forget to leave them. As you know, I answer all your questions and respond to all your comments. And I don't say this enough, but those conversations that we have or that you have with other people leaving comments are really, really important, because it's that exchange of information, that sharing of knowledge and so on. Not just from me to you, but from you to me and from you to others. That is very, very important. That makes these videos a community. A community where people can share knowledge and learn and just have fun learning stuff. And if you need seeds for planting, check out our seed catalog online at www.willowsgreenpermaculture.com. And pretty soon I'm going to be having some plants to sell for people who want to come and pick them up, who want to buy them right here at Willow's Green Permaculture. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us as well. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time.